thing I say is Allahu Akbar, which means God is the greatest. And so, even in our confrontations, being someone who is striving to live a lifestyle that is reflecting of the Most High doesn't go away because I get angry. I still have to keep in mind that this relationship, this marriage, has the goal of submitting itself to the God. So even when I'm angry or if she gets angry, the Lord's Prayer and that statement we just made still have to go into play because we are a union striving to become one with the God. So God never leaves our relationship, whether we are having a situation where I may have said something that offended her or she said something that offended me. We have to always remember what we are representing and allow our representation of the Most High to lead us getting past what has happened, because we are all going to make some mistakes. We are imperfect people, but yet we are striving to reflect the perfect one. And so in our imperfections, we keep at the head of our, in our imperfections, we keep at the forefront of our mind that we are just striving to get this thing together to reflect the perfect one. And sometimes it's going to come with some bumps and bruises given to one another. Okay. But I have to forgive her of her trespass, or she forgive me of my trespass.
I will say this too, since you mentioned, of course, we're talking about a spiritual side of it. The opposite of God, obviously, is Satan. So I was reading in different books when I was pulling up different questions and things to bring. And sometimes even when you're dealing with something, if you know each other's intent or intent of the conversation, or maybe even the conversation you maybe even had before the situation or the breakdown, the communication breakdown, you can blame it on Satan. A lot of you hear it all the time. That's Satan. That's the devil.
That's a cop out, though.
No. Hold on a second. Hold on. The only reason. No.
You said what you said.
Hold on. Let me make my point.
Yeah, you said what you said.
The point I'm trying to make.
Cop out.
The point I'm trying to make is a lot of times.
Because then you don't take responsibility for what you said.
No, what I'm saying
or
is
did.
no. Listen. Because this is a universal principle. When you know each other's intent, then you're not so quick to blame. Some of us just like starting fires. You understand what I'm saying? So if you know the intent of your wife, you know the intent of your friend, you know the intent of whoever you may have, you may have said something wrong, the other person may have said something wrong, you'll come back, get into your right feelings, and you understand, okay, this person didn't mean this. This was completely out of emotions. So a lot of times we have to say, okay, once we reach the reconciliation, we have to say, you know what? Because that's really what friends do. Mm-hmm. When you are friends, you generally will laugh through your arguments. That's the point I'm trying to make. So
but you still have to acknowledge that
you
was wrong.
Absolutely.
And not say Satan was in the court. No, you said what you said.
Right. Okay, let me say this. It was funny. But honestly, we shared a laugh over because it was funny. But yeah. I do partially agree with what he's saying, is that when you know the individual and you know the intent, again, my wife always says something, that when you're in relationships, you got to learn how to attack the problem and not the person.
Right.
Like there was one situation. This honestly happened. I'm a preacher, and so I'm up and I'm speaking before the people, and then after I'm speaking before the people, I'm coming down back and I'm shaking hands and I'm talking to people, and I was standing and I was talking to people, and my wife walked up to me. She gave me a breath mint. She said, "Your breath stinks." Period. It just stinks. And now here's the thing. Now I could have got offended by it, but I know her intent. Right. There's people talking to you, and you don't want to offend them. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm just we're laughing, but we're being life, we're being real. But here's the thing. I'd rather my wife come to me and say, "Yeah, your breath stinks. Here's a peppermint," than have somebody say, "Man, I'm not coming back to that church because the preacher has bad breath." So I think it is back to what he's saying. You got to know the intent of the person. Yeah, I understand saying the devil made me do it. It could be a cop out, but understand what he's saying and what I was hearing in totality. Sometimes if you don't deal with it at at the root, the enemy can make it larger than it has to be.
That's right.
Right,
That's
and I understand that. All I'm saying is sometimes, yes, I did. But what I'm saying is sometimes we don't take responsibility
Right.
for our actions, and
Right.
we want to say all this, that, and the third caused it. But the reality of it is, sometimes that's just like when you are in an argument, and I say this to CJ all the time. You can say sorry, but when you add a but, that cancels
Right,
out
right,
everything
right.
that you said. So what I'm saying is, I don't need you to say I'm sorry, but you was a blah 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 blah.
Right.
Well, everything you said after that cancels that out. All you gotta simply do is say, you know what? I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry. That's a whole nother conversation and question. But I had to say that because sometimes we just want to put the blame on. No, just take responsibility for what you did.
True.
It's a process.
Suzette, you want to say?
I was
Did you?
gonna say it's a process. It's a process though of going through.
Speak to the mic.
I think for us, I don't know. We took that second part of the question, and so we were saying, how can you love if you are not willing to forgive? So for us, we automatically went to the second part, saying, well, we choose love, and so we never really have. When we do have disagreements, and I will say, out of the 5 years, we can probably count on one hand, and it was rough because I was like, oh my gosh, we had our first incident. This is different. I didn't like the way it made me feel. So what we developed was, let's do transparent moments. And so it said, okay, can we have a transparent moment? During that transparent moment, which is very difficult, you both cannot get upset with whatever that person chooses to say to you.
Oh, that's good.
So whatever he says to me, I can't show it on my countenance. I can't roll my eyes. I have to truly effectively listen to what he says. I may not like it. I said, God, I didn't know that. How long were you holding it in? And so we try to incorporate that on a regular basis so we're not building it up. Because when we find out we're building it up, then now I'm angry and I'm frustrated. I'm like, I ain't come this far for us to go away. So we got to figure it out. And so I'm a communicator, and he's not the communicator. I'll be like, oh, my gosh. But you know what? I'm thankful there's a Pastor Sean that comes in and he'll come and I'll train him in the morning at 6 o'clock. And I'll say, well, I was talking about this. He's like, well, sis, did you ever look at it like this? And I was like, let me go back and say I'm sorry. And I say, okay, you work really hard. Let me apologize. And I don't put a but at the end of it because I know that he takes a lot from what I do. So I know that I have to own up to it. And so in the beginning, it is pride. You're like, I ain't getting ready to apologize. But I ain't getting ready to be divorced either. So, so you apologize or you figure it out. So I was like, he's a good guy, so figure it out. So I have to go back. So we do transparent moments, and that has helped us a lot.
So the transparent moment, is that like in the middle of you guys having a disagreement, or I mean, how does that look? What does that structure look like?
He needs more time to cool down for a second. So he'd at 0 to 10. I'm like, I'm gonna watch because I'm just gonna watch. And on that third time, saying, okay, we really need to talk. He's like, I ain't ready to talk yet. So by the time he gets to the third one, I know to walk away for a minute. That's his language. Let me allow him some moments, some time to go away. And I'll say, okay, look, we done went too far. We never go by a day. So by the end of that night before it's bedtime, we do address that. So we definitely, because I told him people are losing their lives too much, and I'm not going to lose him, and I have alt in my heart. So that's one thing you got to figure it out. Like I said, that pride, it has to go. So we do address it. Not immediately because you need some time to cool down so that you're not acting out of emotions and that you really check so that you don't say anything that's hurtful. And I mean, and so I can say we've had, is this okay to say, good arguments? Is that a such thing?
Yeah.
As we've had healthy arguments.
Healthy
that,
arguments.
You know, we've had healthy arguments that we can agree to disagree and come back. And so that's seasoned maturity, but it comes from healing too.
Right.
So that kind of flows into the next question or one of the questions of how do you guys deal with conflict in your relationship, in your marriage, when you're having any type of conflict? How do you deal with it? Because we know, some people walk out the house, some people leave, some people, do other destructive things. So how do you deal with conflict in a healthy way when you are having issues with each other? With something may come up. How do you deal with that conflict?
I would add to it, and it was something that my sister said, that it was a conversation that I actually had with my wife, being that we've known each other prior to the transformation that we've been going through. And vulnerability has a lot to do with really fixing a lot of issues that we may have as married couples. And so when my sister was speaking about transparency, I just took that word and matched it up with vulnerability. Because specifically as brothers, depending on the type of life we lived in the world, it's hard for us to be vulnerable. Because a lot of times you think vulnerability, you think weak. And so that was something that I discussed with my wife. Just, this is one of my deficiencies. So now if we're having issues, she know this is a deficiency that she may have naturally. So now she can help us work through whatever situation that we may have, because she knows that us working through it is helping my husband with what it is that he said he has an issue with, which is being vulnerable. So you want to add to it? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think I alluded to it in the last question. I think early on, and if the Lord is graciously to allow us this year, we'll be married 9 years and been together 10.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much. But that was one thing that we had bad. We didn't attack the problem. We attacked one another. And so we had to learn how to, watch this, put our personal feelings out of the way and deal with what is the issue. And so, as Miss Suzette was saying, my wife and I will have what is called evaluations every so often. We kind of just have a categories. How am I doing with money management? How am I doing as your husband? How am I doing as a father? What am I fulfilling you? What are some areas?
Wait a minute, y'all do evaluations of each other, like a
She'll
performance review.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Every so often, and kind of like you said, we have to set that framework, that groundwork at the beginning. Like, now, before we get into this, the agreement is you can't go off on me. You can't go there. Let's just talk about it. And I just think, now being able, again, as I said at the beginning, the more time you spend together, you start to mature a little bit. And so here's the thing. We still have issues, but thanks be to God, the things that we have heated discussions or good arguments over now are not the same thing they did when we first got together.
Right.
I like that.
So attacking to answer the question again, attacking the problem, not the person, because listen to me, at the end of the day, no matter how you feel about me.
So give me an example of attacking the problem and not a person.
Okay, like when she said my breath stink.
Okay.
I could have got mad at that. Like, first of all, you ain't gonna call me out like that. You ain't gonna talk to me like that. You could have pulled me to the side. You know what I'm saying?
Right. In church, right?
But because that's the place it could have took before. But then I understand. You know what the problem was? My breath stunk. And here's the solution. Here's a mint. And then I go back. Thank you. No problem, babe. I got you. And that's it. It's over with.
Okay.
As opposed to taking something that small. Our Bible teaches us that it's the small foxes, little foxes that spoil the vine, Wow. And so that's not even worth that argument, That's not really worth that. And so that would be an incident that comes to mind.
So for me, when we first got married, I was quick to yell and fuss and cuss and shut down. Those were my responses. And so my husband, being the awesome man of God that he is, he would oftentimes quote the scripture, "A soft answer turns away wrath." And he's like, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And so I had to learn that had to become a behavior that I had to learn. I had to learn to be more soft, because I was passionate about what I was saying. I was passionate about what I'm saying. I know I'm right. You're not gonna treat me like I'm not right. But
So how did you learn to become more soft?
Because that goes both ways, both men
I'm
and women.
saying every time I'd be going in. When I say in, now I'd be in some place, okay? And he wouldn't respond. And make me more mad. I've locked him in a bathroom.
You did lock him in the bathroom?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, I've locked him in the bathroom. I locked him in the room. Ain't no telling what else I did, Pastor Henry. Poor chap.
And if I laugh at her, that would make it worse. This is ridiculous.
So did you laugh on purpose?
No, I was just laughing because I'm like, listen to me.
It doesn't have to be this deep.
This is not that big of a deal.
But I wanted him to respond. I wanted him to respond to what I was saying to him. And so when he didn't respond, it made me lash out even more. And so what I found is we had to take time and make moments to talk about what we were dealing with. This ain't a good time. He's soft. Like his demeanor is soft. I'm like, and so when he does get like loud, like you need to chill out, I'm gone. I'm run off like a kitty cat. You know, so we made time. Whenever we had a disagreement, this is not a good time. We'll come back and revisit this.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Was that